it doesn't matter
Yeah.
how much wealth you've accumulated. It doesn't matter if you're the model, like, immigrant identity and you're the model, like, person. It doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
Like, you could get discriminated against no matter what.
And again, it goes back to, like, I think that I didn't learn that until back to that example of, like, me in grad school and working towards, oh, I'm going to get a master's and maybe I'll go after my PhD. And then Trayvon, being murdered, then started getting those wheels going, saying, look, it doesn't matter what title that you have. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you have in your checking account, because someone might look at you and say, I don't like you.
And it shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think, like, that's what I'm realizing is, like, it shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter. Like, you shouldn't get more respect because your accomplishments are great, and you shouldn't be like, oh yeah, I won't experience racism because I'm rich. Like, that sucks. Welcome to From Home to Here, where we dive deep into the compelling stories of immigrants and children of immigrants to shift the narrative and break the silence barrier. I'm Amin, your podcast host. Together, we'll explore the journeys that shape and define us. Today, we have Chandler Johnson. Chandler Johnson is a distinguished art director and the current president of AIGA Kansas City. With over a decade of experience in the creative industry, Chandler has honed his expertise in graphic design, videography, audio, and web design. His innovative approach and commitment to excellence have made significant impacts in each of these fields. Chandler's passion for communication and design is not confined to his professional roles. He has also shared his knowledge as a communication and speech instructor at Illinois State University and the University of Missouri at Kansas City, shaping the next generation of professionals. Chandler is also the creator behind the Pick Progress Project. This 6-year initiative has celebrated the Black experience through diverse artistic expressions featuring over 100 designers from around the globe. The project's success was recognized on Kickstarter, where it was highlighted as a project we love in 2020. Welcome, Chandler.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's always good to see you.
Always good to see you.
Yeah.
So why are you here?
That's a good question. Why am I here? Well, I mean, I feel like I'm here to share my story and my journey. And I was graciously invited by you,
Yes.
which, we've known each other for a minute.
Yes.
I was your instructor back at UMKC.
Yes.
Yes.
I was not the best student, but
Oh, you were prioritizing other things instead of maybe my class from time to time, but you were great.
Yes.
You were great overall.
yeah. So, I mean, and then since that, we just keep running into each other.
We do. Yeah.
And thank you for coming to the gala last year for
Yeah.
From Home to Here. And we just dive deeper and deeper into this relationship. But the reason why I wanted you to be here is because Pick Progress Project, I think, really parallels well with the immigrant journey and with, there's just so many parallels between your story and the immigrant journey and the struggles that immigrants also go through.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when we had the conversation beforehand, I didn't think that I was worthy to be not only speaking on this wonderful podcast, but also just trying to understand the relationship of my journey and the immigrant journey, or kind of the traditional sense of the immigrant journey.
Yeah.
Because I come from a background where it is based in the transatlantic slave trade. And then through those roots of working as, my family members and ancestors as slaves, and then working them way up to fighting for becoming citizens, to then transition into a generation where I am here now talking to you. And so to then realize that, I am part of that immigrant story just in a different way, made me realize that maybe I do have something to share and to be here on that podcast. So it's great.
Yeah. And I also was a little nervous about, I can't speak on the Black experience. And I was a little nervous bringing you on here and making sure, we're not getting canceled or, diving in. But I did some research before I got on here a lot about the civil rights movement and how it really led paved the path for later laws that were released on immigrants. And the Black Civil Rights Movement opened the conversation around discrimination and race. And it was really the first time in America where we had to deal face on that, hey, you can't treat people differently because of the way they look.
Yeah.
And that really paved the path for people of color, because they also didn't look like white Americans that were of power when Black people were slaves.
Yeah, I will say this, like, you mentioned that you can't speak on the Black experience or feel concerned about speaking on the Black experience. Well, I'll say this, I don't necessarily know if I feel like I can speak on the Black experience. With that being said, is that I share my experience of being Black. I think that, with the Pick Progress Project, it highlighted that Black people are not monoliths. Like, we have similarities in our stories. We have, relatability in our experiences, but like, not every Black person is going to be thinking the way that I'm thinking.
Yep.
I can only share what Chandler Johnson is thinking with his experience of being a Black individual here in America and as a citizen of the world. And I think that for you, like, you also have, insights or perspectives that you can share. And what's beautiful about this experience is that we're able to communicate, right? And have a collaboration through conversation to figure out what does it mean to be human in this world.
Yes.
I think one of the things that's really hard, or sometimes that we forget, is to listen and to give each other grace, because social issues are sticky. They're hard to kind of, have conversations because everyone has a strong opinion, a strong feeling about them. They're close to the heart, which is understandably so. But at the same time, it is really important for us to give each other grace to then have conversations like this, because hopefully there is education and teaching and healing that is happening throughout that whole entire process.
And more importantly, understanding.
Yes.
In current climate, everything is so divisive. And people like us are too afraid to speak up, but ignorant people aren't afraid to speak up.
Yes.
So we should be talking, and we should be collaborating more and learning from one another. And just before we even started speaking, you had mentioned about your journey, and you had talked about this feeling of otherness.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit more about, your background and this feeling of otherness when you were growing up?
Yeah. I think my journey is a unique one in the sense of, I feel like there is the melting pot of a lot of different aspects of my life that make me who I am, but also put me in a spot that makes me feel like a unicorn. And I use the word unicorn because a lot of times we look at unicorns as these like mystical, special things, but at the same time, that every time that I think of a unicorn, they're also like set apart from everything else, right? And so for most of my life, I started off thinking I was this magical, special unicorn, that like my experience through all the hardships and some of the traumatic things that had happened to me was just molding me into this person that is going to be like you see in all the movies, like the Harry Potter or the Luke Skywalker or whatever. And then as I've gotten older, there's that loneliness and that othering that's happening. So to kind of take a few steps back, I was born here in Kansas City. I don't know my biological father. I've never met him. But my mother, who's Black, married into a mixed race relationship. So my siblings, they're half white and half Black. So I spent, all the way from 6 on in a household where I was the darkest one in the room, the black sheep of the family, so to speak, right? Which I didn't necessarily understand the context. Like, we didn't talk about it as a family. We just kind of lived our life as it is. But looking different and having a different last name than the rest of my family, like, you start psychologically kind of realizing that something's different, right? Even if we're not talking about it, we're not talking about the elephant in the room. So I spent most of my life growing up in that kind of space. And then I was in predominantly white spaces. So I spent a few years in private school, which was predominantly white. So I was used to the space of being, if not the only Black person in the room, one of the only Black people in the room. And at the same time, as I felt like I could navigate that really easily, I think it was just that bubbling of me suppressing that feeling of sometimes I wanted to just feel like I could fit in.
Yeah.
And it was only until I got to college, when Trayvon Martin passed away, was murdered, that I realized I was in grad school when that happened. And I realized that there was not enough education or a title or anything in the world that was going to prevent me from experiencing somebody hating me. And that was the first kind of like crack in this, like, concealed, vacuum sealed protection thing that I had created for myself of just being who I was. And then it was like, no, but you're also a Black individual in America, in a society that has had this friction for years about your being, the way that you look and who you are. And that then started changing. And I got my first job as the designer, and there was that other aspect of I experienced some more otherness where I was in rooms and trying to give feedback as a designer, and sometimes feeling like no one was listening to me, and having that double consciousness of saying, like, am I the crazy one? Am I not smart enough? Am I not thinking about this the right way? And at the same time being like, no, I think that I'm saying this and I'm articulating it, correctly, all these different types of things. And it just added, and it just kept on building and building and building. And fortunately, I was having that kind of existential crisis that in 2019, I got an opportunity to go to Africa. And that's when things started opening up. That's what made the inspiration for creating Pick Progress. And that's when I kind of went into this self-reflection journey of who I am and what does it mean to be Black in America? What does it mean for me to be Black in America? All these other questions that I had in my head, I, started to seek them out and have conversations with other Black individuals to feel if they felt this way. Yeah. And that's a little bit of my journey. Yeah. Long story short. Yeah.
Yeah, just a few things I want to highlight in what you just said. So that feeling of otherness, right, really parallels with the immigrant journey. I mean, for me, like growing up as a child of immigrants, I didn't also know like that I was different. Like I didn't realize that all my classmates were all white. I didn't understand, like it's the color of my skin. Like it's like it's the way I look. You can't change the way that you look. So people are going to treat you based on just their first glance, and that's sad.
But I also say this. It also makes sense that as a child, like, you think about us as children, because I miss that aspect. There's that, for me, sometimes there's that longing of how simplistic our feelings as children, that all we wanted to do is play on the playground. We didn't care what you looked like, who you were. Like, as long as you were good at kicking a soccer ball, we're good. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
But it's when you start getting into middle school and high school and things start leveling up, where those social dynamics start changing. And then it's like, oh, well, you don't fit into our category. Like, we start creating these tribes and these groups and these categories that then make the extra pressure of who we are feel bigger, right? Yeah. And I feel like that othering then grows, because I think of my friend group from college, where we were all on the same playing field, because all we were trying to do is live in the dorms, get pass grades, and maybe go to parties from time to time. But then after college, everyone was thinking about the socioeconomic situations of, I got to get a good job. And when I started realizing that some people, they're making tons and tons of money walking out of college because of the career paths that they have. And now I'm feeling like I'm trying to figure out my place in this world, because there is that othering. There is that aspect of maybe some preconceived notions of me being a Black individual applying for a job, and them looking at me and saying, well, maybe he's, and I don't know this to be true or not, but again, there's that psychological impact of, well, maybe he's not a hard worker. Even if his resume says this, this, and this, maybe he's going to, disrupt the space that we have because
he is different, right? And I mean, even in the design industry, there are not that many Black individuals in high, you know, kind of leadership positions. A lot of designers that are Black are in freelance or in-house situations. They're not in agency life. So like, you know, I think back in 2020, some of the stats were like only 20% of the design population is people of color. And then you start breaking that down into smaller segments of how many are you know, of this population and how many are that population and everything like that. And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So to be a representative,
I was just thinking in my head, representation matters.
It matters greatly.
Yeah.
And to be a representative in that space, it's not only hard, but then it kind of goes back to that unicorn thing. You're really special, but you don't realize like how much the weight is on you.
Well, it's because when people visualize a leader in design, because the representation isn't there of people of color or Black Americans, they can't see it.
Yeah.
When they see a leader in their mind, and I can relate to this a lot for in my industry as well, is usually it's a white man. And we're starting to get to the point where, yes, sometimes it's a white woman. And sometimes now it's also like an Indian man.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like, where we've like stopped.
Yeah.
At a representation of leadership across multiple kind of industries. Another thing you mentioned that made me think about this is I think a lot about that transition that you talked about where you're friends with everybody and then it starts getting siloed out. Because I can also visualize like when that started happening. I'm wondering like what your opinion is on this, but like my parents didn't have a lot of friends that were not like them, right? Because they didn't speak English very well, or they just didn't feel comfortable or welcome in other communities, whether it was because of their socioeconomic status or whatever it was. And I felt like there was a point where it didn't matter, like who your parents were, what the network was, or who they talked to. And then it was like, oh, these kids are friends because their parents are friends.
Yeah.
And now these kids are friends because their parents are friends.
Yeah.
And it starts from like parents, they're only like these guys are only friends with white people.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you can relate to that, or is that something that you also noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we grew up in a household. I mean, there's so many different things that really impacted. I mean, I grew up in a sports family. Everybody played sports, so we had connections because of sports. But like when you look at kind of the hustle and the game that's being played, especially when it comes to like career moves, right? So that's another thing that's hard because growing up as a kid, I think that other families and predominantly white families probably know the hustle. They know it differently. They look at kind of that experience of creating the connections, creating the network, creating the who's who. And it's already established of, oh, I can hook you up with that person.
And it's passed down, right?
It's passed down.
Their parents have done it, and then, you know, and
it's those small things that we don't talk about. Like this is where the pressure cooker, like it grows because it's not just about how you look. And it's not just about your own personal experience. It's a legacy.
Yes.
And then it becomes this connection of like, well, if you did know this person, you might get your foot in the door. And I'm not saying that people of color don't have those connections, but then it becomes these isolated things where it might be a connection with just only Black and brown people where they're on the same kind of financial level or the experiential level, or that we're just at this ceiling and trying to break through through the ceiling to the next level has to be through a white space.
Yeah.
And that's when it gets tricky.
And I feel like we have to work so much harder. I mean, now I have a kid, and like you talk about how you were a sports family. My parents didn't even know where to go to sign me up for sports. They're like, oh, these kids are playing soccer at the park. Wonder how that happens.
What would you have played? In school?
I mean, I don't know, but I do wish like my parents would have started something earlier.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had athleticism when I was in college.
You can start now. You can jump in.
I mean, yes, we're getting there, but I mean, like, people don't talk about this. They should think about like how much more behind you have to start. I mean, now with my kid, like, I feel like I have to work so much harder to figure out, okay, what sport should I put her in? Where should we go? Because my parents didn't do it with me.
But at the same time, I don't know. I guess it's like there's a little bit of you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. There's so much to what it means to be human and to do, like, live this life, that it's never going to be a perfect system, right? Like, I give my parents a lot of, I try to, like, there's conversations that we haven't had. There's conversations that I feel like we should have. And then there's grace that I feel like I should give them. And then there's moments to, like, hold kind of the circumstances accountable for what they are.
Of course.
Right? And that's such a hard thing because, again, we want to paint things in black and white. There is a wrong and there's a right. There's what you've done to me. That's what you haven't done to me. And I try to live in that gray area space where it's like, it kind of is what it is. Like,
I didn't mean like, oh, my parents didn't put me in it, but suck. It was more like they didn't know.
But I'm saying there's that. But you even responded, and I guess maybe this was my response to this, of like, you know, wanting to give your kid that opportunity. And it's like, yeah, but there's also tons of opportunities that you want to give your kid, right?
Yeah.
And there's just so much, there's not enough time and not enough space to be able to do that. And I even look at my family of like, yeah, they gave us all the sports time that we could possibly have. Is there some things that I wish from a financial sense that I would know better now? And I wish that I was into science and chemistry more than like that I am now back in the day. And I feel like if I had some of those opportunities back then and maybe pushed in a different way, maybe my life would be in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Like, I'm blessed that like sports was a thing in my life. You know, I'm blessed that like I became a speech geek in high school and, you know, went on and did speech in college. I'm blessed for those moments that made me who I am. And so, like, I have to balance the space of, like, what my family knew and what they were able to provide for me. And hopefully I was able to take the torch and just run with it and just try to improve upon it. Like, keep on trying to level up. And at the same time, that doesn't change the fact that there are these ceilings and these walls that are necessary and need to be broken down. So I guess maybe what I'm trying to say is that it's just complicated.
Yeah.
It's so complicated to try and figure it out. And I know that like your parents and my parents were doing the best that they can with the information that they had. But it's so hard to have that conversation and live in the space of both realms of, man, I wish this what it could be, and this is what it is. And
that's very interesting, your perspective, because your parents did this school. You're like, well, I wish we did more science and math. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think I think it's just that I look at it again. It's the stereotype that sports was going to be the way out, and I mean, I look at my brother. So his story and his journey. He played college ball, D1 football, got signed as a undrafted free agent for the NFL, and then day one said, I don't want to do this, and left. And he did it from a passionate perspective of like, I want to figure out how to be happy, and like, this is not making me happy. And a lot of people would be like, that's crazy, the money that's there. But I also look at it and it's like, you're putting your body on the line on a constant basis. Like,
well, I wasn't even thinking about the money because a sentence before you were like, sports was our way out.
Yeah.
And then if that's your way out and your brother made it.
Yeah.
And he's like.
But I think that's what everyone in the family thought as well. Yeah. It's like, you've made it out. Like, even if you spent
I want to dive deeper into that though.
Yeah.
The way out.
Yeah.
The way out of what?
I think, because I mean, you know, it kind of goes back to cash rules everything around us. Like, I mean, money is going to be able to, it feels like it's going to be the equalizer.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that you're like, okay, well, more money, more opportunity, more this, more that. And that's fair. And I'm not saying that it isn't. I think that like I'm trying to get mine just like everybody else. But I also think that there's a certain cost that comes at it where, especially like something like football, where it's like, well, there is a thing called CTEs. Is a thing of like breaking your leg and not being able to walk the same way ever again. That should be a decision on that person to say, this is what I'm going to put up to get, that money back. And for me, I'm not going to speak on behalf of my brother to say, well, you should be doing this because you're going to be making a ton of money. It's like, I'm not the one playing on the football field.
Yeah.
Like, and so like, go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt you because you said money is the equalizer.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of immigrants also feel that way. A lot of, I mean, I think it was also ingrained in me, like, if you make more money, you will be respected.
Yeah.
Or like, your place in this country is worthy.
Right.
Or maybe they talk about the model immigrant identity. Like, and I think what you're talking about is like the model, like, Black athlete. That's been like taught down things. This is very interesting to me, like the words that you're choosing and like that background, like that's internalized in you from even your parents, like through sports, the equalizer, the way out. It's very interesting, like the words you're choosing.
Well, I mean, I think that's where then for me, when I realized that like I played football and it just didn't make me happy. And I got through it after high school. I'm short. I wasn't going to grow. I wasn't going to become more of an athlete.
In today's like world, we're realizing it's not the equalizer.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much wealth you've accumulated. It doesn't matter if you're the model, like, immigrant identity and you're the model, like, person. It doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
Like, you could get discriminated against no matter what.
And again, it goes back to like, I think that I didn't learn that until back to that example of like me in grad school and working towards, I'm going to get a master's and maybe I'll go after my PhD. And then Trayvon, being murdered, then started getting those wheels going, saying, look, it doesn't matter what title that you have. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you have in your checking account, because someone might look at you and say, I don't like you.
And it shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think like that's what I'm realizing is like, it shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter. Like, you shouldn't get more respect because your accomplishments are great. And you shouldn't be like, oh yeah, I won't experience racism because I'm rich. Like, that sucks that that was taught to us growing up.
Yeah.
And I think this new generation, like, I see younger people and they're like, no, like, it doesn't matter that I'm a model minority. It shouldn't matter if I'm rich. We should be treating each other as humans equally, no matter what.
Just for the fact that we are humans living on this earth.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that like that's why with Pick Progress, to go back and have that project be such a important thing for me. And I feel like I should give some context of what Pick Progress was. So like real quick, I got to go to Africa in 2019. It was an amazing trip. And again, that added on to this pressure that felt like when I was in Africa and in Kenya specifically, they were sharing, saying like, you're one of us. And I felt like I was an outsider to that community in the same sense of like feeling like an outsider in America. So like I'm in this space where I don't necessarily know if I feel like I fit in anywhere. Yeah. Right? Because I don't know my ancestral history. I don't know where my people of origin came from. I don't know where I fit in America. I don't know where I fit in when I'm traveling into Africa. And when I got back from Africa in May of 2019, I was like, I want to dissect what it means to be Black. And so I made these Afro combs and taught myself how to 3D print, and they made 31 of them that had Black empowerment phrases on them. And I realized quickly that I don't have enough hair to fit all 31 Afro combs in my hair. And I was like, it'd be really cool to interview. I have a journalism background. It'd be really cool to interview these like 31 different individuals, Black individuals, about their experiences, and do this long form on a website telling their story and highlight like similarities and differences based on everyone's experiences. And this will be a way for me to kind of better understand my sense of self, and that know that I'm not alone in the same feelings that I'm having. That's why this podcast is really, really great, because again, you know, we talk about our journey and that it's different, but it's also similar in the sense of like the othering and the worries that we have and everything. And so created that website in 2020. 6 years later, we've also taken those phrases, those 31 phrases, and had 100 artists from around the world contribute to the project. And it's just been this beautiful thing that, you know, I'm coming to an end with it. I'm ready to kind of sunset it, but it's been this beautiful thing that's been able to highlight, you know, an understanding that, you know, there's these beautiful individuals that are out there. And if we just took the time to understand their perspective and understand that all of them, every single one of them, deserve dignity for just being a part of this connective tissue that is being a human, that's the starting point, right? And then we can have conversations about what the pursuit of happiness looks like, and how do we create equality for everyone and equity for as much as we possibly can in this world. But it starts at the heartbeat, and I think that's the most important thing. So yeah.
And that heartbeat is right here, right? We're sitting down, we're talking. You said you didn't feel like you belonged, right? You said you went back to Kenya, you didn't feel like you belonged. In the US, you don't feel like you belong. That's very similar to how immigrants and children of immigrants feel in the US. I mean, I can speak for me, like when I am here, I look different. I have different experiences. My family life looks different. I go back to India, I'm different. I don't belong there either. So it's like this journey of finding where home is and who you are. That's, we can really relate on that.
I feel like I'm trying to figure out what home looks like for me. I think I'm still on that journey.
I don't think it ends.
That's true. But I think you make progress, hopefully, you know? And I think that like I had that existential crisis, like I said, in 2015, 2014 of like, who am I? I think I'm now on that journey trying to figure out who is my community. Because the community has changed and evolved, and I'm holding expectations that I want for the community to feel that I'm accepted, right? There's moments where I'm in a group and you easily feel like the conversation, there's those slight microaggressions, right? Whether they know it or not, that they're saying certain things that it's like, but like my experience is completely different, and it feels like there's the disconnect. And I think it's really important for me to find that home. I kind of goes back to like, and I think this is the pressure that you've probably experienced, that I experienced, where like one of the things that is it's kind of that unicorn thing. It's really great about you, but it also can hurt you. I'm a workaholic. It comes down from like, my grandpa is a perfect example of being a workaholic. And I think it comes from that, like growing up in the South, and you had to do as much as you could to get by. And that torch was passed down to me of, you have to work. Like I remember them talking to me like, you got to go to college, you got to get a good education, you got to do that, go get a good job, you got to do that to
I think every child of immigrants can relate to exactly that.
And then I hit that point where I'm like, I'm working my butt off to do that, and then like these other tools in my tool belt that aren't as sharp, that aren't as great of, what do I want for like a family life? What do I want for like these relationships? What do I want for everything? I've kind of put to the side because I've been in the pursuit of, I'm going to get the job that I'm looking for, and I'm going to make the money that I'm looking for, and that it's all going to work out. And I've realized in the most recent years that who knows if I'm going to accomplish that, because there are so many other barriers that I cannot control, that it might take a little bit longer for me to get there. I'm not saying that I won't get there. I'm just saying that like there are certain things that I cannot control on that journey to that spot.
And I feel like it's more about the journey.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was a student at UMKC, there was a person named Beck that I ran into, and he later became my boss and CEO. Whole another story, not my podcast. And he said something to me at UMKC when I was there that I didn't internalize until much later in life. That words just stuck with me. And I went to him and I was like, I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying to figure out who I am. I lost, yada, 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 you know, like, and he said something to me. He said, you don't find yourself, you create yourself. And I feel like the same thing applies to home.
Yeah.
Right? Community, right? We may not find the community where we belong. We may not find home.
Yeah.
But we can create it.
Yeah.
And we can create home, like how we see it. We can create the community where we make the sense of belonging.
And I think it's really important that not only everyone feels that way, but inclusivity is such an important thing to that. Because it's not just like, sometimes I feel like I'm pushing like this big old ball up a hill with no one else helping sometimes, when it's like trying to create the home that I feel like I deserve and that feels like it's bringing the rest of the community into it. And I sometimes, again, it goes back to some of the thinking is it's not everyone, but like a lot of people feel like they're in it for themselves, or maybe sometimes it feels that way. I don't necessarily know. Like, I mean, I think, again, when you have people that look like you, there is that sense of community that's already there. And then it's like puzzle pieces where it's fragmented and there's that line that's there. I'm talking about it from a inclusivity from, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what your background is. We are connected together again because of the heartbeat. And that we should try and strive to create that home, because community is important, and that when we have a collective thought, like a collective of diverse thinking, it's a beautiful thing. It's truly a beautiful thing. I can't, it's so hard for me to process people who think that everyone being on the same page and having the exact same background is going to show innovation.
It's their comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's people don't want to be challenged. And we talked about this earlier in the podcast, right? People don't want to be canceled. So they go back into their comfort zone with people that look like them, think like them, because they don't want their mentality to be challenged.
And there's a fear there.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't understand the
Again,
fear.
fear of othering.
Yes.
Like
Fear of the othering and fear of being isolated, kind of going back to the canceling part, where, well, and the problem is that I can't help but be me, right? The cancellation part of being othered is on my skin. So it's like, I'm like, well, I don't have a choice but to be me. The thing that stinks is that, like, now I'm out there trying my best to be the best version of myself, and there are all these systemic things and social layerings of how people are perceiving who I am without getting to understand or know me or have those conversations. The more that the
stereotyping.
Yes. And the more that we are saying, like, let's not be afraid of that. Like, let's lean into being vulnerable and allowing for us to have a conversation.
Well, it's not just on your side, right? The other party also needs to come into it with understanding.
Exactly.
And they need to want to learn, right? We can be as vulnerable as we want, but when the other person's already decided exactly who you are and how you're going to act, then it's hard to be vulnerable.
Yeah. And I think it's both, right? Like, I think there's a little bit of, to meet people in any type of communication that I feel like I've learned is that both parties have to come to the table with this open connection, not only talking, but also listening and being able to kind of do the tug of war, the give and take of like both sides.
And being okay with being wrong.
Yes.
And being okay with being corrected.
Yes.
And seeking that.
Yeah. And again, it kind of goes back to that grace part of like, how do we figure out the connection that we want to make? And it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes grace, and it also takes accountability. I think a lot of times again, we don't want to talk about the elephants in the room. We don't want to talk about the things that have created our society where it is today. We don't want to talk about the laws that segregated and discriminated against individuals. We don't want to talk about the how that has progressed into the embedding of how we see the world. Because they'll be like, well, that was 400 years ago. And it's like, but that was the start. That was the seed that then created the vines for opportunities for some people and not opportunities for others. Yeah. Right. I think about my grandpa, and he tells his story about like, and he's still alive, and he grew up in an era where he had to carry this metal ball on a chain to go to work, where he worked at a hotel, but he walked through neighborhoods, and the metal ball on the chain was just in case he was in the wrong like neighborhood and someone wanted to start something with him because he didn't look like them. He had something to protect himself from. That is a person that is living and breathing, that I talk to on a regular basis to this day.
Yeah.
It's wild to think that is not so long ago.
It's so recent.
But in our minds, sometimes we're like, oh, well, that's in the past. Well, no, not for my grandpa. Like, that is something that is his history that he still had to go through, that is embedded in him to this day.
And we talked about this earlier, about legacies that are carried through families. So your grandpa, right, about his experiences and how hard it was. Well, the reverse of that is we have white families where their grandpas knew of times where racism was okay.
Yeah.
And that we just see that carried on through legacies. And I feel like until there's somebody that's strong enough to say no, like enough is enough, we need to stop carrying this forward. This is not the legacy that we should carry forward. It's going to continue.
I think it's interesting just to think about it on the other side of because again, the immediate response is, let's not talk about it, because it's going to be painful for white individuals of saying, yeah, we have a history of potentially slave owners in our family tree, on our family tree. But at the same time, it's interesting, and I don't necessarily, because I'm not white, so I don't know necessarily what the conversation is like to have about what does that mean for us, and now moving forward to create a more inclusive, experience for everybody. Because I think what happens is you look at it, and being that we're all in this kind of rat race in life, you just look at the benefits and the bonuses that you're getting and say, let's take them and run with it. Like, why am I going to look at something and say, well, no, I don't, like, I feel like everybody should get it, as opposed to like, maybe I should just protect mine and my family. But again, it's that psychosis of thinking that we can't create a new home. We could create a new experience for everybody that feels more inclusive and feels more equitable. But it takes, again, back to what you're saying, that vulnerability and willingness to say, listen, this is an unfair system. This is not fair. This is a system that is privileged and beneficial to certain people and not beneficial to everybody. And we look at greed being good, and I look at it as, it's good if it works for you. It's not good if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, I saw something somewhere, and it's like, are white Americans afraid to be a minority? I wonder why. Like, are minorities treated bad or something?
I mean, even looking at marginalized communities and not recognizing and struggling to live in that space and understand. I mean, I don't think that you can understand it unless you're in it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's one of those things is like, I'm not saying that you should walk in a mile in our shoes, but like
it's that conversation, right?
But it's that conversation.
Sitting and understanding.
Yeah.
All of this stems from being willing to understand other perspectives and not just learning from your family and what you've passed down from the lens of your whiteness.
Yeah.
Right? Getting out of that. And there are people that are doing that. There are people, I don't want to discount, like, I don't want to, again, generalize the entire white population. There are people that are doing the work. But obviously, it's not enough.
No.
Obviously, we all as a collective need to do more and do better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did a little bit of research before coming into this episode because I invited you and I really wanted to educate the people that are listening on why it was important to hear from your experience as a Black American. Obviously, like, it's your perspective and it's not generalized, but still, I wanted to have that representation on the podcast. So a few things that I want to tell you guys that are listening, and also you, did you know that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was driven by the Black Civil Rights Movement?
No, I didn't know that.
No? Okay, but neither.
I might have like known a little bit, but like keep on going.
Yeah, I knew that it had a hand in it, but I didn't know like the specifics behind the laws. So this Civil Rights Act of 1964, it prohibited discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, and it laid the groundwork for future anti-discrimination protections that then later benefited immigrants as well. The other one was the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This one aimed to eliminate racial discrimination in voting, and this also later strengthened democratic principles that later supported immigrant rights. So all that to say is that without the Black Civil Rights Movement, it would have been so much harder for immigrants to be able to be like not discriminated against race and be able to have the right to vote.
Okay, I'm on the same page now. I think that like it's such an important thing to realize how each of these different movements that have happened throughout American history are helpful laying the groundwork for everyone else, right? I think sometimes one of the things that I learned in grad school that is an important thing, especially fighting the good fight for equity and equality and representation, is intersectionality. Yep. Because like we do look at, the Black Lives Matter movement or the Black movement or civil rights movement or whatever is just primarily for this one group. And it's like, no, it isn't and isn't. It is led by a Black movement, but it also can be something that brings in all the other communities and people to be a conversation of how do we create more equity and equality for everybody else. These laws that were passed, were led by people by Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Blacks, civil rights leaders. Yeah. But at the same time, the benefit and the boon for everyone else is a huge thing. And I imagine that there are tons and tons of moments in history that Asian and individuals from India and from around the world also impacted, like, the way that we see the world, from...
I feel like it's getting
from everywhere.
So again, another reason why I wanted to say is that you talked about the Black movement, right? And people are like, well, that's for Black people. It's not, though.
Yeah.
Like when we look at our history and we look at Black civil rights activists, they include all marginalized communities. Mm-hmm. And if Black people are treated better, people of color are treated better. And I feel like people have lost that today. It's like, oh, that's your struggle.
Yeah.
Like, you go figure out and fight for your own rights. But if we were to all stick together and understand the history of where this all began and how if we fight for better treatment and equity and equality for all, that will serve us so much more in the future.
Well, I mean, I think one of to kind of respond of like, why do we get into this feeling it's segmented, is that it's hard to like sometimes, and I'm not a person that hates media. I come from that journalism background. It's not an easy path to tell a story.
But I think sometimes it's like when you do hear the words like Black Lives Matter or a certain group, all your brain is thinking that it's just that one group. And it's like, but no, like that is, you perceive it as that. But if we're going back to what we talked about earlier of how do we create a home, if you hear those words and realize this is the struggle that this group is going through, are there other groups that are going through a similar struggle? Yes. How do we create those connections and bridge those gaps to say, we're all in this together? How do we go about, moving towards that goal? And so it just takes the work in our brain to make those connections. I think sometimes, and I say this a lot, or I try to live by this kind of rule. It is such a beautiful thing to be a human on this earth. For all the struggles and all the trials and tribulations, do I love sometimes my origin story? No. There's moments that I sit there and think to myself, man, it sucks to feel like I, haven't met my biological father. It sucks, sometimes the struggle of feeling like the other and this unicorn that grew up and feeling special, but then at the same time feeling like, man, I don't want to be a unicorn. I just want to be a regular horse and I just want to fit in with everybody. But at the same time, there's these beautiful moments like this moment of us having this conversation, right? To think about our whole origin story of how we became friends, right? From being a teacher to a student to now like having this conversation and watching you, talk to me and ask me questions. It's a beautiful thing to be a human. Mm-hmm. The thing that makes it even more beautiful is being an active participant on a daily basis, right? Being so open to everything that the world has to offer and allowing for everything to come through your eyes and your ears and all your senses and try to be present for them.
That touched something for me because we talked a lot about creating community and not belonging in community, but to be a community member, you have to do work.
And it's a constant thing. There's never a finish line. Like the finish line will be when your heartbeat is not beating. It's done. It will be always a constant thing where I am working because the other thing is I'm not perfect. I fail. I fail all the time.
Yep.
Sometimes I don't understand. Sometimes I'm ignorant. Sometimes I'm not the best version of myself that I want to be and the hero story that I tell myself. And I have to be vulnerable with myself and realize that like I don't necessarily always understand your story and your journey the way that I should. But if I want to be an active participant in this world, then I need to strive to keep my mind open to listen, to try to research, to try to understand, in addition to just living life and trying to make by, working a job and getting a salary and trying to find a house and trying to, make sure the car is working and having kids. Again, it's not easy. It's just a goal and a thing to strive to have in order to create this home and this community that we're striving to do.
Yep.
So it's not like I'm saying like it's easy and that, you should do it. But if you ever have a second where you're sitting there and you have a moment of clarity and you say, man, this is beautiful, that these hands and these feet and this voice and these ears and these eyes work and whatever senses that are working, and I'm able to create this connection that is there. And I want to strive to meet as many people as I possibly can to try and create that connection, because that's the beautiful thing about being a human on this earth. The things that are frustrating and unfortunate is the hatred that we have. I don't want to live in a space, and I can feel it. I'm getting on that part where like, I don't live in a space where I'm angry and mad at everybody. Like I don't. Like I get frustrated that we have people out there that it seems like their main priority is to divide, to go and find ways to say, well, I have to get mine and that's all that matters. And everyone else can, figure it out for themselves. And that division becomes so frustrating and so tiresome, because all I really want to do is return back to that kid in the playground where as long as you can kick a ball into a goal,
that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
As long as we can be on the playground and have fun, like, that's all that matters to me. I don't care about like what you have and what I don't have.
Yeah.
I care about you being a human and how can we create this connection together.
I've been practicing giving everybody around me more grace. Like, you know, you talked a lot of, like you said, like, you don't want to have hatred.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be angry.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you exactly said
Yeah.
that, but that's how I
Yeah.
took it. And I've been saying, like, let's just give people more grace. You know, somebody's doesn't understand something, like, let's try to aim to teach them.
Yeah.
Or if they're willing to listen. If somebody doesn't know how to be a good community member, let's give them that feedback. Like,
Yeah.
hey, man, you really didn't do a good job here. Like,
Yeah.
I just think that we need to do more to understand where the person is coming from rather than just reacting based on maybe what they said or the action. They said a bad thing, maybe they're having a terrible day.
Yeah.
So I've been focusing on giving people more grace. People just don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much that people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if other people understand the otherness you're feeling, or people understand like what an immigrant goes through or a child of immigrant goes through and how that continues. I mean, there's so much I learned about you just now. Like, you said you were, you know, in a mixed race family.
Mm-hmm.
I never even would have thought that, oh, like,
Yeah.
he was considered dark
Yeah.
in his family. Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that your biological dad wasn't in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even understand how it feels to not know where you're from ancestrally.
And I think that's something that, you know, I'm working through right now because I've spent years burying it.
Yeah.
And like when I say bury it, like even like I feel it right now where it's like I buried it so deep that when it started bubbling up, I didn't know what was happening. Like, I mean, like even like for a long time, like I still like be feeling angry about things is a hard emotion to feel because I suppressed it because I was like, you just got to bite down and just keep on working. It's okay. Like this is the stuff that has been given to you, so you just work with it. It kind of like feels like that, and I
it's like an invisible burden.
Well, I was gonna say that, and I also don't want to compare it to like the struggle of slavery, but it's that slavery mindset of you just work with what you got and just keep on bearing down and going for it. Like it feels like that ancestral passed down, even though my experience is nowhere close to the struggles that they had. And now again, as I've gotten older and know that emotions are good. One, again, as a black male, emotions and feeling those and being expressive of them is a good thing. It's not being this strong black male is that kind of it boxes you in, and it's not fair to you, and it's not helpful to you, especially if you're wanting to build the relationships that you're wanting to have the dynamic, having a partner in your life that feels that connection. And so for me, I'm trying to lean into that emotion, but like I suppressed that struggle so much that when it bubbled up, I didn't know what to do with it. And giving grace not only to myself and giving grace to others, and again being expressive, right? I don't think what you're saying and what I'm saying is that like we need to lead with optimism all the time.
No,
I think we need to lead with realism of we hope that things will get better. We also
sometimes you need to lead with grace for yourself.
Yes.
So you're not carrying the hatred around and the anger.
And I think again, but like even when you're talking to people where there's some ignorant like behavior that's happening, there's a spot where you understand or share with them of saying like, hey, I feel strongly, like I can tell that I'm angry about what's happening here, right? Like it's not saying that you need to, you know, suppress your anger or your frustration of what's happening. It's being expressive about that and hopefully being the person that is trying to create the connection of saying, and while I'm angry, I'm also here to like enlighten you about why I'm feeling this way, and hopefully you'll listen.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's that give and take. But it's such a hard thing because I think sometimes the gut reaction, these emotions that you're feling is anger, or why do I have to educate people? I mean,
the burden of education
but I mean,
is on you. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I've heard with Pick Progress, it's like, there's the internet, there's social media, there's all this type of stuff. Like go research yourself. And I think that is I understand that response. At the same time, I always get worried about the person that has never been on the road and letting Google lead them.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like, well,
You cannot understand
yeah.
a person's story over Google.
Yes.
I think there still needs to be some education, but I
Absolutely.
totally understand what you're saying.
I think I think it's both and all. I think it's that you do the research and you do the work and all that type of stuff, but you also ask questions and have conversations with people, and hopefully you're meeting a community of people that are willing to answer those questions and talk about those things. And if some people don't want to share, they don't want to share. I respect all of it. But I just think that the more that we're able to be, again, vulnerable and try to create that connection, hopefully the more positive progress we're going to make in society. At least I hope that. I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully, we'll look 20 years from now, we'll meet back in this podcast setting and we'll talk about look at all the progress that we've made through communication and conversations.
Yeah.
And that's the answer. And if it's not, then hopefully we'll have new answers that we can provide for this podcast and be able to share.
I think that's an excellent way to kind of wrap up. So if you were to give the listeners 3 takeaways or 3 things they hope they took from the podcast episode today, what would that be?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to take away. I think I'll say this. I'll start off that I started off in a communication background. When I was at K-State, double majored in journalism and communication studies. Communication is a strong part of my heart. Even in my design, it starts off with the communication. So, I mean, the first big takeaway that I'd say is that communication for me is a silver bullet to the progress that we're looking for. Not only talking, but more importantly, listening. I sometimes suck at listening. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings and things that are rolling in my head, but I'm working to try and be patient and listen to what someone else is saying and understand where they're coming from. Because sometimes we hear the words, but the intentionality behind it is different. So it's we hear the gut reaction of you don't understand, and now we take it as a defensive mechanism as opposed to no, they're sharing that because emotionally they feel like there is a disconnect and they want to feel heard and feel seen and be vulnerable. So communication is really, really important. Listening is really, really important. So that's 1. 2, you're not another.
Mic drop.
You're not another. It's really important to know that there's a community and people that see you.
Yeah.
That we need to work our butts off to not make people feel alone, not make people feel isolated, because it sucks. It really sucks sometimes. Yep. And everyone's journey is different to try and figure out where their place in this world is. I'm striving to figure that out, but you're not alone. As long as I got breath in this, breath and a heartbeat, you got family here. So you're not alone. And then I think the last thing is to say that it's obvious that there's a complexity to the immigrant, the marginalized experience. There are a lot of systemic things. There are a lot of societal microaggressions and just social dynamics that keep us apart from each other. I really hope that we ask ourselves constantly, what do we owe to each other? What do we mean to each other? And how do we figure out how to, make those barriers not existent? So the more that we are actively pursuing progress in our lives to create the connections that not only there's so much beauty in the benefit of breaking down those barriers and learning from one another. The amount of things that the pursuit that you go through, that you've made for yourself in your life, and how active just knowing you on the side of what you've made for yourself, it
energizes me. It's like Gatorade. It's like, okay, now I want to keep up with her and her pursuit. And I get charged with that. Hopefully people get charged with this conversation and say, yeah, I'm going to go out and go after, what I want, what makes me happy, but I also want to lift everybody else up.
Yeah.
What do we owe to each other? What do we mean to each other? What is this connection? What is all about? How do we create home?
Yes.
Is the most important thing. So the 3 things, communication, you're not alone, and that let's work to try and make a home for each other.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
You probably could have.
Well, thank you for your time here today, Chandler. It was wonderful
Thank you.
talking to you, and thank you, our listeners, and look forward to having you listen to our next episode.